Welcome back to Business Casual. My name is Nav Namwal. I am your host. You know, it seems that nowadays consumers are really consuming a lot of content, and a lot of that content is being consumed actually online. And here with me to talk about this in greater detail, I have two experts in the online content realm. First off, to my right, I have my good friend Bayal Dashi, who is currently the community manager for a company called One Method, as well as previously you managed the social media account for NBA Canada because you are a diehard basketball fan.
I do. I am.
I know, exactly. You definitely are. And also no stranger to Rogers TV. I feel like you're on every show. I have Khaled here from InSaga, here joining us, and now in Brampton, which has started. Two online platforms that are just making headwaves here in the community. When I thought about putting together this show and really thinking about content, obviously I thought about the both of you. And, before we jump into just the content creation and how it's really taking consumers by storm, it seems like nowadays consumers really want to be connected, they want to be in the know. I would love to get a sense to how your content creation journey began. And we'll begin with you, Bayal, because I know Khaled can go on forever.
Thanks, buddy. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I began, I guess, just trying to create my own opportunities. Mm-hmm. And one way I went about it was developing a blog. I was thinking to myself, if no one's going to give me an opportunity, I have to go out there and create it myself. So the first way I went about it was kind of point and shoot camera in my makeshift room, which I made into a little studio setup, and that's where I would rant about the Toronto Raptors. Mm-hmm. After each and every game, I would kind of relate it to my life, and it would be something that was a little bit different. I wanted to be different from the others, set myself apart from the rest. And so that was kind of one of the ways I got myself more involved in the whole social media scene, and that led me to kind of go on Twitter, is one of the first accounts I opened, and just to get myself out there, just to showcase my videos. And then that kind of spiraled into Instagram and Facebook, and it was just an ever-evolving way to kind of become who I am and create a platform for myself.
Because you're a diehard Raptors fan, obviously. Well, diehard NBA fan, but you have an affinity for the Raptors. And I think your blog or your initial blogging platform was around the Raptors, right? What was it called?
So it was called Inside the Purple Room.
Yes. And I remember when I first met you and I saw that you were doing this. First off, I love the photos of you and basketball players because they're literally towering over you. But you, what I found interesting, and again, I think nowadays it's becoming more and more of a culture within itself, is, as a female, you were pretty outspoken when it came to the Raptors and some of their stats, and you're really in the know. And I think that's what really drew people to your content, because normally at that time there weren't a lot of female representatives, unless you looked at major media, that were really going above and beyond and sort of, in some better or worse terms, fanboying a little bit and really being that voice for fans.
As we know, it is a male-dominated industry in the sports scene, so I needed to set myself apart from the rest. I needed to be on top of my game. I needed to go above and beyond when it comes to not just knowing the stats, but knowing what's happening, the history of the game, players before my time and what they were doing and the stats. And it was just a whole lot of information I needed to soak in and then just kind of release it just where I saw fit. And that's how I kind of made my way and paved my way to where I am today.
Exactly. And Khaled, I think it sounds like your journey might be a bit similar, because you yourself saw a niche, from your hometown here in Mississauga, of just information that wasn't really readily available that people were asking about.
Yeah, I don't have like a deep story. Your story is much more interesting. But I went on Google.
Yeah.
This is about 5 years ago, or closer to 6 now. But I just typed in what to do in Mississauga, and there was nothing to do. There was no platform, for Mississauga, the 6th biggest city in Canada, and and I just thought, I'm like, hey, there's a market here that needs to be tapped in.
Yeah.
And I bought the name InSaga just because everybody in Mississauga calls in Mississauga InSaga. It's just Mississauga is just way too long, right? So, and I grabbed a programmer and just told him my idea, and he thought it was a great idea. So we just started it. 8 months of kind of focus groups and stuff like that to figure out what to do on the site and what people want to see, and this January will be the 5th year of Insaga. Yeah. So that's pretty much the deep story. I went onto Google, right, and couldn't find anything to do in Mississauga.
I can't wait for them to film that scene in your life story.
It's they're gonna have to do a little more drama for that one.
So, no, but to that, like what I found interesting is 5 or 6 years ago, when you think about sites that were really focused in on cities and what to do, 99% of them were just, here locally, we're just focused in on Toronto. Like, I guess because Toronto's always been that sort of epicenter here in Ontario as to where all the action happens. The fact that you saw an opportunity with Mississauga was phenomenal and was very, at that point, very ahead of the curve. How did you identify, aside from your own personal experience and maybe through the focus groups, that local content was something that people wanted to know more of?
Well, I think you look at the way content was consumed like 5-6 years ago. It was all Toronto content. Mm-hmm. There was really maybe one media company focusing on Mississauga, right? So all we had on TV, all we had on social media, all we had on everything was Toronto news, right? Mm-hmm. So, but Mississauga had tons of things going on, and it didn't have to be about news. It could have been about restaurants, restaurant reviews, and stuff like that. Yeah. But everything that we were consuming was from Toronto, and I think people started getting, I wouldn't say sick of that, but I mean, they want to know hyper-local information, and that's what I gave them. Mm-hmm. Right? So, and I think that's why people gravitated to Insaga and now in Brampton.
Yeah, and it seems that term hyperlocal is something that's becoming more and more apparent, especially 5 years, down the line, especially nowadays. Consumers are really looking for fast and quick information. And Bile, you managing the NBA Canada social media account, it wasn't just the Raptors that you focused on. You focused in on Canadian players. You focused even on general happenings that were going on maybe during the playoffs or during the regular season. How important was it for you to sort of stay on top of things? And what were some of the methods you used to make sure that you were sort of that one account, especially on Twitter, that was breaking news as soon as it was happening? Because I know a lot of people use Twitter nowadays to get breaking news.
And it was all about getting the exclusive content first. Mm-hmm. So the way I went about it was being at Raptors games. It was kind of witnessing what was happening on the court before the fans came in to watch the games. So it was more like seeing who was warming up first and, going to the locker room, talking to the players, seeing what they were talking about, hearing what they had to say, and just seeing who was playing, getting the injury updates before they were broadcast to the fans. And I mean, when it came to the Canadian players too, it was being on top of what was trending, who was popular. I had a segment in which every week we would do a Canadian watch where we would showcase 3 top players in the league and share their stat lines of what they were doing, how progressive, how they were just being great at what they do on the court. And it was just a way for fans to it was a way for NBA Canada to showcase that, there's such a Canadian presence within the NBA that we need to continue to showcase that and to show, that there's relevancy for NBA Canada and for what it was doing for the Canadians.
And that's great, because I think it also relates back to Cal's point around localized content. Like, I myself, wasn't that familiar, with a lot of Canadian players. Obviously Corey Joseph comes to mind. Nowadays we have Andrew Wiggins, and back in the day, I guess Rick Fox is almost an example of a Canadian player. But, it was hard to really get that information, and I didn't really become more of an informative NBA fan until I sort of interacted with the NBA Canada social media accounts, and I actually saw, hey, there are other players out there that are representing Canada that are doing amazing things. When we come back from commercial break, I actually want to dive a little bit more deeper into content and get both your opinions on what makes good content, because I think that's very imperative, especially in the world that we currently live in. We'll be right back after this brief commercial message here on Business Casual.
Yeah, totally.
Which they should be. Back here on Business Casual, my name is Nav Namo, and we are talking the power of content and why consumers just can't get enough, similar to this show. And here joining me to talk about this, I have Bile and Khaled, two content creators in their own different worlds, whether it be in Saga and Brampton, or the previous world, the NBA Canada, now with One Method. I really want to get both of your takes on what really makes good content, because being that we live in such a content-driven world, it's very easy for there to be very simplified content where people sort of take it in and they sort of just look at it, get in some information, and then just forget about it. But then there's also like the journalistic side, which gets really in depth, and that's when people, sort of are used to, magazine articles and so forth that really dive deep into topics. But I'd love to get both your opinions, especially on the content creation side, of what you really looked for when it came to creating good content. If I'll begin with you.
I think I look for content that will go viral. I look for content that's short and sweet. Attention spans aren't what they once used to be. If they can capture my attention in within 3 to 5 seconds, I think that's what wins me over. The graphics have to be great. I think just the visuals all together have to just strike out at me and just show me something that's different from the others. And that's what I find will win me over and will develop into something that would be great. And also things that are trending, such as, for example, right now, the mannequin challenge and just hashtags that have developed into something that have just gone viral, as you know, like the Ice Bucket Challenge back in the day too. And I think that's great content too, and that's content that can develop into various campaigns that just do so well and are so successful.
Some would say that, what you just described with content that's very engaging and exciting, has potential to go viral. A lot of that was happening also in mediums outside of online. Why do you think nowadays in the online space it needs to be, I guess, a bit more direct, and there has to be further emphasis put on that?
I think that people just are wanting more, and I think that the way that they go about it is through the means of social. I think whatever they can capture within the means of just their fingertips is what they'd like to see. And just captures your attention just like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think there's any method for viral, because everybody wants a viral video, right? But there's no method or secret. It just happens, right? But you're right. It does have to be something that people are interested in. It can't be boring content. It can't be. But so I mean, like I wish I had the formula for going viral. But yeah, it just has to be interesting. But and it also has to be set to your demo, right? Because if you're talking to NBA Canada or if you're talking to Mississauga, the content has to be specific to that demographic, right? So that's what I look towards. Is that I kind of look towards who's reading my content, right, and then push it there. So
especially since we live in such a data-heavy world, especially within online, it's very easy to pinpoint who's reading it just based on demographics and so forth, and just the information that you're able to gather through page views nowadays.
Yeah, the information you can gather now. I mean, you can gather age, you can gather sex, you can gather everything, right? So within seconds of an article going out, right? So you can push it to, all of a sudden if it's 80% women reading it, on Facebook you could push it to females, right?
The analytics and the back end behind the analytics is what is key as well. Just that, like you said, to know the demographics, to know what's working and what you should focus on going forward. And I think one of the keys too is customization as well. I mean, we have brands that we target towards different age ranges, and we customize our content and cater to that age or that gender, whatever we see fit.
Yeah, exactly. It's becoming very, very targeted. Bile, you actually alluded to earlier, just content being available at your fingertips. Smartphones they're changing pretty much everyone's way of consuming content across all ages. What importance do you feel the smartphone is currently playing in sort of enabling consumers to really stay on top of what's going on in the world? And Cal, begin with you.
Like you said, I think it's a complete game changer. I mean, you're getting information as it happens in your hands all the time, which wasn't the case, 20, 30 years ago. You had to go to the TV,
or wait for the local newspaper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Like literally, it happens, and within seconds, all three of us will know because we'll get a ding on our phone,
Yeah.
right, saying it happened. So it's a complete game changer.
And social media plays a role, and I'm curious for the both of you. What's your current go-to social media to get that breaking content? If I will begin with you.
It's interesting because we were just talking about this earlier. To this day, right now, even when I get up in the morning, Twitter is my go-to.
It's also my go-to as well.
Especially when it comes to news, because I find that once I find that link, I will go to the specific app, whether it be the Star or the Globe and Mail, just to get an understanding of, okay, this is the story that I want to dive more deeper in and get to know more of. And of course, for all my sports content as well. Twitter is where I go to in the morning, and what I scroll through during the day too. Don't get me wrong, Instagram has a huge role in my life, in my day-to-day as well. But I find for content, that's what I go to.
Cal, do you agree?
I'm gonna have to respectably
respect.
disagree. Okay, I feel Twitter is like a necessary evil that I have to put out. Like just I don't find it very engaging. People don't come back to the website through Twitter.
Yeah.
I can understand getting news and stuff like that, but I usually get my news through Facebook. Facebook has tools now that Twitter has, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were talking about the trending topics on Facebook, so you can get news from there. But I still think Facebook is still king of social media, even if people are not as I guess the millennials might not be on it as much, but even if Facebook has 500 million people leave, it's still the biggest platform, right? So my go-to is Facebook.
And it's interesting that we're seeing differing opinions because Twitter is actually sort of going down in popularity right now.
Yeah.
And their stock prices dropped quite a bit, and there's rumors of it being sold. Well, Facebook, Facebook's always been this very interesting social medium that sort of came to the table first. Really took advantage of the social media landscape and was able now to change things with Facebook Live and so forth. So it's really interesting to see just how both are playing their specific roles within the content world. Less than a minute left. I wanted to simply ask a one-sentence question. Do you feel like there will be a point in time where consumers just get overwhelmed with the amount of content that's out there, Vile?
I think they already are at
Really?
times. I think it's hard to really figure out where they want to search for, what they want to search for, and I think that as time goes on, I think that we're going to be able to hopefully find a way to really pinpoint what we'll focus on when it comes to the apps we want to use. And
awesome. Khaled.
No, people always want more. They will always want more. Your glasses in 2 years will have a screen on it.
I'm almost certain.
Yeah.
I'm almost certain because of the way people are connected these days. It seems like content is definitely king, and will continue to be king or queen for the next next plethora of years. I'm not going to put numbers to it because we're going to hold me to it. Thank you so much for joining us here on Business Casual. Really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us here on this week's episode of Business Casual. We will see you again here next time on Rogers TV. Take care.